In this day and age, humanity had plunged headfirst into chaos. Monster invasions were no longer an emergency, they were routine. But just as the world teetered on the edge of destruction, something awakened. Humans began to receive superpowers, unlocking mysterious auras that shimmered with color, colors that marked strength. Blue was the weakest, red the pinnacle, an unmistakable sign of S-rank power, as the Manhwa crowd would call it. Those with such gifts became known as heroes, the last line of defense between what remained of civilization and the monsters clawing at its borders. Among them was a girl, one who had dreamed of heroism ever since she was small. Her powers awakened during middle school. Healing, a gift for restoration. And when she registered with the Hero Association, her rank was a shock, A rank. But not all dreams survive the battlefield. During a mission gone horribly wrong, her team was obliterated, crushed, torn apart. A teammate lay before her, barely breathing, desperate for her powers. And she, frozen by fear, couldn't move, couldn't activate anything. Her body locked, her gift dormant. She stood still, while someone died. And what good is a healer who cannot heal? That moment marked her fall from grace. In the present day, her face still loomed large, but only on a billboard. Flashing high above the streets, her smile now marketed heroism like a fast food combo meal. The ad urged the public to join the association with her face as the bait. Below, passers-by looked up. Some admired her beauty. Others questioned why an A-rank hero had been reduced to a mere digital poster girl. None of them knew the truth. The girl who once dreamed of being a savior now served as a mascot, used as an object, paraded for her appearance, stripped of everything but image. She kept her identity hidden whenever she walked the city. She didn't want to be recognized, not as a failed hero. So when she overheard boys commenting cruelly about the girl on the screen, not knowing she was just steps away, she bolted in shame, only to slam directly into a pole. Stars danced before her eyes as she stumbled. But then, something caught her attention. Just beside the pole, a small box, and in it, a cat, curled up tightly like it had been tossed aside. Concern overtook her embarrassment. She knelt down, wondering who could have been so heartless. But her gaze landed the cat's tag. One word: stronger. She looked up. Across the street, a gym. Stronger cat, gym cat owner? The logic was tenuous, but unshakable. She scooped up the cat and stepped into the gym to return it. She did not expect what came next. Inside, two very heterosexual men were caught mid-act, though what act exactly no one could say. It had the awkward energy of a family drama, an action movie, and a shampoo commercial all at once. She stood there, frozen, nervous. And then he turned. Malwang, the gym's apex specimen, towering, loud, and dressed in a tiger-themed bodysuit that screamed either dominance or unresolved trauma. He noticed her standing there and misread everything. To him, she wasn't a lost girl with a cat. She was a fresh gym baby, a recruit. He slashed the gym door open dramatically, ready to induct her into the chaos. The girl, still clutching the cat, could only whisper the word, cat. Malwang met eyes with the feline, who stood there like it had just cured cancer. The stare-down was intense, but telepathically, he understood the cat's intention. Then he shouted for his companion, Kiwung, to serve up a plate of jokbal. Protein first, questions later. The girl still had no clue what dimension she'd stepped into. The gym leader circled her, inspecting her posture like a gladiator eyeing a rookie. He casually noted her arms were like noodles. Her knees could give out any second. He didn't recommend improvement. He issued orders, loud ones. He declared he'd squeeze the lemon's squeezy out of her. Before she could make sense of that disturbing fruit metaphor, the training began. PT, he announced, then instantly, head up, engage your core. She opened her mouth to object, but it was too late. He was already shifting routines. One moment, dumbbells. The next, bench press. No breaks, no logic, just chaos, exercise, and sweat. After minutes of this torment, he granted her a 1-minute break. She hadn't even caught her breath when her phone rang. A monster alert. Her eyes widened. She was the only hero within 1 kilometer. Her mind raced with thoughts. She hadn't used her powers since that day. What if she froze again? What if she couldn't do anything? What if she failed? Malwang, seeing her visibly sweating and shaking, assumed she needed the toilet. She tried to say something, anything. But in her nervous state, the words came out jumbled. Even if I have to go. Malwang misunderstood completely. Then go, he said. Do what you want without holding back. Just don't regret it later. Motivational, or so she thought. With renewed fire in her chest, she sprinted toward the monster. Back in the gym, Malwang realized the tragic truth. The bathroom was out of toilet paper, but she was already gone. At the scene, chaos awaited. A crocodile-like B-rank monster stood menacing over rubble. A young girl was trapped under a rock, moments from death. The would-be healer stood frozen. Then, remembering Malwang's words, she charged. She moved. At last. She pulled the girl from danger just in time. The monster turned on her, its fist raised, but something slammed into it first. Malwang. Appearing out of nowhere, he punched the beast so hard it flew into a building. He stood tall, declared himself the alpha male, then looked at her with utter seriousness and said, "The bathroom was to the left." Seconds later, bam! Monster fist to the face. He grabbed nearby rocks and started chucking them like dodgeballs. He laughed. She blinked. Where was his aura? Could he be fighting without any powers? The monster pinned Malwang to the ground. The girl watched from a distance, confused. He had no aura, no powers, yet he faced the monster head-on. She wondered if he had some hidden weapon. Just then, Malwang stood up, dodged a swipe with ease, and began mocking the beast, shouting that he had an A-rank hunter by his side, so show some effort. He pointed straight at her. She shook her head. His expression dropped. And then, bam! The monster smashed him back into the ground. The monster continued pummeling Malwang, each strike louder than the last. He took the hits, one after another, with no defense, lying beneath the force as the girl stood by. She stepped forward once, unsure, trying to help. But the fear returned. Her confidence crumbled. She couldn't heal no matter how hard she tried. And as Malwang took another crushing blow, he lay motionless. Once again, she couldn't do anything. Tears began to fall as she stood there, helpless. Her power, her purpose. It all felt meaningless. But then, Malwang rose. Bruised and battered, he still stood. His body barely held together, but his mouth never slowed. He mocked the monster again, claiming it was holding back on him. More hits followed, dush, dish, thush, each one landing harder than the last. Through the haze, he noticed the girl crying. Even then, he didn't falter. He told her it wasn't her fault, that she should stop crying. Something sparked in her, a flicker of the fire she once had. Before the monster could land another strike, she rushed forward and activated her healing. Light surged from her hands, and in moments, Malwang's injuries vanished. Now fully recovered, he grinned with renewed energy. He was excited, not just for the fight, but because he now had a newly awakened girl at his side. He grabbed the monster by the neck and flung it across the field. Then, with both hands, he lifted a nearby pole and smashed it down, sending the creature flying into a bus. At that moment, Kiwoong arrived, carrying what looked like a nuclear weapon but was, in fact, a lamb shank. He took a massive bite, and his body instantly rejuvenated. The scene resembled something out of a food anime, complete with exaggerated reactions, but the monster recovered too and launched an attack. Kiwoong blocked it, with the lamb shank, unleashing a named move, Protein Dumbbell Hammer. He continued striking the monster, even taking a few hits in return, but each time the girl healed him instantly. Finally, with one massive slash, they brought the beast down. Malwang pointed at the girl, declaring it the beginning of her new story. She raised her hand, overjoyed that she was able to help, but her blood-stained hand was grabbed and used to sign a gym registration form. Malwang cheered. She stood there, stunned, realizing what she had gotten herself into. Later, Ji-hyun began training at the gym under Malwang's direct supervision. The training was harsh, focused, exhausting. She questioned why she was there, but he had promised to turn her into the healthiest life form on the planet. Though her body struggled, the fact that she could use her powers again made her feel alive. She wondered if the Horse King had something to do with it, if being around him somehow helped. As she lay on the mat, the cat curled up beside her, cozy and still. She thought the cat was comforting her, unaware it was simply making sure she didn't leave. Kiwoong came over with a bottle of water, telling her it was always hard the first time, but it would get better. Every drop of sweat would bring results. She noticed something fall from his pocket. When she told him, he explained it was supposed to be a secret, a movie script. She asked to see it. It was a role about a minor villain. She joked he must be disappointed he wasn't the lead, but he told her he liked being the villain. It made the protagonist shine. With a quiet smile, He admitted he enjoyed being hated. Ji-hyun was quietly impressed. His mindset was strong. He didn't care about others' opinions. She thought about asking for an autograph later. Suddenly, the air shifted. Ki-woong began lifting weights, dumbbells to the shoulders, then over the head. Just then, a roar came from the other side of the gym. The Horse King. He hurled a storm of insults at Ki-woong, brutal, relentless, ridiculous, every sentence louder and more outrageous than the last. "You worthless piece of shot! Is that all you've got? Calling you trash is an insult to trash. You couldn't win an arm wrestling match against a damp paper towel. You eat like a beast but lift like a sponge. Did your protein run away from you? You are the luggage while I am the full package. Telling people you train here is defamation. Pack your sorry gains and get out. You pay rent for that barbell? Then pay mine too, dumbass. You'd lose a lifting contest to a goddamn anchovy. You want to eat above-average chicken breasts with below-average lifts? Get real." Ji-hyun was stunned by the language, asking what he was doing, but the abuse continued without pause. Ki-woong surprisingly asked for more. The more he was insulted, the more strength he found. Finally, he pushed the weight above his head, rejuvenated. The image of Ki-woong shattered in Ji-hyun's mind. After all the insults, he looked completely refreshed. Later, a public support request came through. Heroes were needed to clean up the aftermath and assist in rebuilding. Before Ji-hyun could react, Ki-woong had already rushed outside. She tried to stop him, saying it was for heroes only. Malwang told her Ki-woong was a B-class hero too. At the site, hunters were already working. Ji-hyun and Malwang arrived to help, but a nearby hero recognized her. He asked if she was the Cure Girl. After confirming it, he got excited, said he saw her TikTok Tanghulu challenge. He started asking for another one. He became pushy when she declined, saying she was on a mission. He told her Cure Girl didn't do missions like this. Just do it once, or maybe shake her hips a bit. He offered to buy her dinner. She told him to stop. Before anything else could happen, the Dark Horse appeared, interrupting with some bizarre uwu behavior. After his little dance, he asked for dinner too. The yellow-haired hero picked up Malwang. He recognized him from somewhere, 3 years ago. A group of students smoking in a no-smoking zone. Malwang appeared and told them to stop. They insulted him, called him a hairy geezer. In response, Malwang beat them so thoroughly that one of them started pissing himself on the spot. Now, in the present, Malwang looked at the yellow-haired hero and asked if he'd quit smoking. The yellow-haired hero shouted he'd been looking for Malwang for ages, and now a hero himself declared he was more of an adult. Flames burst from his hands as he used his skill, sending a hot wave of fire toward Malwang. He made fun of him loudly, saying he wasn't the same person anymore and that someone unawakened like Malwang should be punished. But when the fire died down, Malwang hadn't moved. Untouched and unbothered, he came out of the fire like a phoenix and landed one hard punch. Every tooth in the hero's mouth went flying. Malwang stood tall, his loud voice scolding him for thinking that someone who trained for years, making his body strong with hard work, could be hurt by a kid with powers he didn't earn. He yelled at the young hero for not having common sense and told him he should go back to elementary school. Ji-hyun watched it all and calmly thought it was honestly normal for people to get burned like this. Then a soft, musical voice called out, a familiar presence that immediately made Malwang flinch and stop moving as the words came closer, asking if it was their fun gym oppa. Malwang's eyes widened, and a shiver went down his spine. Another hero appeared, Heart King. With a teasing tone, she gave Ji-hyun a quick hello before rushing past her. She wrapped herself around Malwang, holding on tight. Her hands touched his chest and stomach as she squealed, saying how soft and exciting his body felt with every touch. Ji-hyun stood frozen, totally misunderstanding what was happening. Malwang, on the other hand, was not happy. He turned and ran, but Heart King chased right after him, her laughter and a mess following them. Malwang yelled back for her to go away. She answered, promising to make him feel good like last time. Ji-hyun's eyes twitched. Her brain felt scrambled. Behind her, the yellow-haired hero began to move again. Ji-hyun turned and warned him not to move, but before she could finish, he jumped at her, shouting that now he knew where the gym was, he'd burn it all down. Ji-hyun didn't back down. She told him she couldn't let him do that. She said he started this and should be ashamed for using sneaky tricks because he wasn't good enough. He screamed back, asking who she thought she was. She calmly told him the law, Article 23, Paragraph 6. Someone with powers must never hurt someone without powers. What he had done was like trying to kill someone. And if he caused more trouble, she'd stop him herself, as a hero. He lost it. He screamed that all she had was a pretty face, and asked what she could even do. He jumped at her again. But before he could get to Ji-hyun, something sticky shot out from the dark. It wrapped around his arms and legs and stopped him in the middle of his attack. He struggled but couldn't move. Ji-hyun turned. She saw an A-rank monster, ugly and twitching. Its body moved in a strange way. It spoke slowly, asking for Tanghulo. The monster's eyes twitched as it showed it wanted this thing. Then it jumped at Ji-hyun with all its might. She tried to get ready, but a strong shield appeared around her. The hit bounced off and didn't even scratch her. A girl stood nearby, clearly a hero, her hand up, in control. Quickly she used her powers again and trapped the monster in a glowing cage made of energy. Ji-hyun knew her right away. She stepped forward, hardly believing it, and asked if she was really the S-rank hero, Yura. The monster growled and changed its shape, making its arms and legs thin like strings, and slipped through the cage bars. Right away, Yura made a huge hammer out of pure energy and slammed it down on the monster's head. It broke into pieces. Yura turned to Ji-hyun and squinted. She said Ji-hyun looked familiar. Ji-hyun, surprised, said they had met at the Hero Association, that she was Cure Girl. Yura paused. Then her face lit up like she remembered. She called Cure Girl that clown from back then. Ji-hyun's confidence dropped a lot. Meanwhile, Yura looked around. Her eyes found Mal Wang, who was now giving Heart King a piggyback ride like at a fun park. Without waiting, she blasted Heart King into the sky and turned to Mal Wang, shouting that he couldn't do anything without her. Mal Wang didn't answer. His eyes looked empty. His body shook. He was in trauma mode. Tears fell from his face. Ji-hyun stepped closer to make him feel better, but before she could say anything, Yura's face changed. She looked at how close Ji-hyun and Mal Wang were. Something inside her twisted. Mal Wang, still very upset, gave Yura a small smile and asked why she hadn't come to the gym lately. She answered by being rough. A giant hammer appeared and smashed him into the ground. Ji-hyun blinked. She started to wonder how many women from Mal Wang's life would show up with their own problems and big weapons. Behind her, no one saw the monster's pieces come back together. It stood up again, quiet, hiding, and jumped again. Mal Wang, without a second thought, blocked the hit and protected Ji-hyun. She turned, shocked. He grinned and told her to be careful. She asked if he was okay. He told her he was fine. But Yura didn't like how they sounded. She stared hard at Ji-hyun and thought Ji-hyun was trying to act cute. So Yura acted even cuter. She dramatically tripped over nothing and said she got an ouchie. Mal Wang was already running, away from the monster. Yura was now really annoyed, so she stopped pretending. She used her power to stop the monster where it stood. Then she made a full suit of energy armor around Mal Wang, turned it into a cannon, and shot him like a rocket into the monster's chest. The hit was perfect. The monster broke into pieces when Mal Wang hit it. Touchdown. Ji-hyun's eyes widened. Something flashed around Mal Wang. It was a quick, light shimmer, not any aura color people knew. It didn't follow the rules. She wasn't sure if it was real or if she just imagined it, but she had seen something. Mal Wang casually turned to her and asked if she was hungry. Ji-hyun was once again left standing in silence, caught in the weight of her thoughts, feeling useless all over again. The group walked toward a nearby restaurant. Like any gym group, they ordered only food with lots of protein. Nothing but meat, eggs, and pig feet. Yura complained, saying they ordered the same thing every time. Mal Wang said it was good for the body and told her to eat. Outside, she groaned. Inside, she felt happy. She thought he had a strong but kind way about him, and then wondered what she was thinking. Mal Wang turned to Ji-hyun, asking her to eat too. Ji-hyun said no, saying she wasn't hungry. Her stomach rumbled loudly, giving her away. She paused, then said she was on a diet, but she thought to herself she could never say. It was because she had anorexia. Mal Wang got very upset. A diet? He said extreme diets were not allowed. Healthy meals after exercise were a must. A healthy body needs good food. He made her take a bite. The taste hit her like a shock. Her face showed pure happiness. It was so good, she couldn't even hide it. Yura, sitting across from her, noticed. She felt like it was a contest if Ji-hyun was getting attention. So Yura started eating food too, as over-the-top as possible. Mal Wang just smiled, eating his pig feet, happy to be around protein and quiet. Sometime later, Ji-hyun was at the gym exercising. She noticed significant improvements in her physique, likely due to Horse King's exercises. She felt healthier and less depressed. Suddenly, someone approached her from behind, calling for a brother, startling her so much that she tripped and fell. Scared, she turned to face the stranger. a young woman clutching a cardboard sign, urgently requesting help to stop her brother. The girl shared a backstory filled with hardship. Having lost their parents early, her brother stepped up to fill the void, tirelessly working day and night to support her. He saved enough to send her abroad for her education, allowing her to graduate college. However, upon her recent return to Korea, she found her brother acting strangely, frequently saying an odd catchphrase and rarely coming home. Concerned, she disguised herself and secretly followed him to the gym, suspecting involvement with a bizarre cult, specifically led by a man she described as the cult leader with the tiger print underwear. Ji-young attempted to reassure her that the gym was simply a place for exercise, but before she could finish, loud noises interrupted their conversation. Curious, they peered inside and witnessed a bizarre scene. 4 menacing rock star types shouting aggressive phrases like, "Die hell," and "Go to hell," while charging wildly through the gym, leaving unsettling patches of blood-like marks on the walls and floor. Intrigued and confused, the two decided to follow the strange group. The girl was unsure due to the makeup, but she believed her brother was among them. As they tracked the rockers, they observed the group surround an elderly woman carrying groceries. Ji-hyung was about to intervene, fearing an attack, but was stunned to see the men helping the granny cross the intersection, shouting seemingly hostile phrases the entire time. Further along, another bizarre act unfolded when one of the rock stars seemingly assaulted something above a child's head, only to realize he was merely retrieving a ball stuck in a tree, aggressively telling the kid to be ready next. The absurdity confused Ji-hyung further, causing her to question their intentions. Eventually, their pursuit led them to a suspicious hideout filled with robed, fearful-looking individuals paying at an entrance, deepening Ji-hyung's suspicion that this was indeed a cult. Determined, she and the girl disguised themselves, entering the venue after a chaotic entrance that involved minor injuries. Inside the enormous auditorium, they found themselves amid a fervent gathering. Suddenly, a familiar voice startled the girl. It was indeed her brother. Another dramatic scene unfolded as someone dragged a body onto the stage, revealing Horse King beneath a mask. Chaos erupted with chants demanding a sacrifice, shocking Ji-hyung deeply. Horse King raised a sword dramatically and slashed downward, splattering what appeared to be blood everywhere. Ji-hyung collapsed from shock, only to realize moments later it was ketchup from burgers filled with protein and fat, part of a bizarre fitness-oriented charity event. The room erupted into enthusiastic chants and rigorous exercises like mega deadlift and power lift, revealing the true nature of the so-called cult, a harmless, fitness-driven charity gathering. A relieved Ji-hyung and the girl watched everyone, including gym members, energetically participating in exercises. Realizing her fears had been unfounded, the girl understood her brother was still the same caring person who had always tried to make others happy. Inspired, both joined in the energetic charity event. Meanwhile, unnoticed by anyone, far away in space, a massive spaceship ominously approached Earth. Something none of them would expect of how dark it was to become. Sometime later, the group gathered once again, Manhwa included, chatting excitedly about the concert. The energy was high and their faces glowed with joy as they recalled the night's highlights. The reactions during Horse King's part had been particularly intense, drawing a lot of attention. Manhwa took special pride in one moment, referencing the infamous ketchup scene. Dave, the brother of the girl from earlier, seemed especially close to him. As a playful gesture, he threw red juice onto Manhwa, imitating the chaos of that scene. Caught off guard, Manhwa quickly wiped the juice from his face and gave chase, laughing and cursing as he ran after him. While this commotion played out, Ji-hyung and Yura arrived backstage. Observing the group closely, Ji-hyung suddenly realized the truth. All of them were members of the Mega Dead Band. The sight left her stunned. Meanwhile, Manhwa caught up to Dave, playfully choking him in mock punishment for his prank. The mood was chaotic, but light. Once things had settled, Manhwa and Ki-woong started to leave to go to the toilet. On their way out, they were stopped by a girl, bright-eyed, energetic, and completely unknown to them. Manhwa was immediately overwhelmed with excitement. It was the first time he believed a girl had approached him as a fan. Just as he was building expectations, she turned her attention to Ki-woong instead. She had recognized him from the concert venue and nervously asked if he had a girlfriend. Ki-woong, caught off guard, denied having one. Emboldened, she quickly handed him her number and told him to contact her. Then she rushed off, leaving Ki-woong speechless. and Malwang lying on the ground in quiet sorrow, emotionally wrecked by the misunderstanding. Back where the others were still gathered, news arrived that the donation collected from the concert had been safely delivered. The group broke into cheerful celebration. Despite their chaotic behavior and eccentric appearances, Ji-hyung quietly acknowledged the truth. These people had warm, sincere hearts. Yura confirmed the sentiment. Both Horse King and Dave had a long history of supporting those affected by monster attacks and family tragedies. Those they once helped had banded together to form the Mega Dead Band. Now, they used the concert proceeds to assist others, just as they had once been helped. Ji-hyung, shy but excited, admitted that while Horse King was undeniably strange, he exuded a contagious energy. Seeing how many people followed and trusted him, she realized that being around him felt oddly comforting. She trailed off mid-thought, and Yura's expression instantly soured, jealousy flaring. Quickly changing the subject, Ji-hyung asked how Yura had come to know Horse King and Ki-woong, sensing there was a long history between them. Yura pretended to brush it off but was clearly flustered by the implication of closeness. In the past, Yura had been overweight. Significantly so. During one of her grueling cardio sessions, she collapsed in the gym from sheer exhaustion. At that moment, Malwang had approached her, urging her to stop overdoing it. She had responded with hostility and anger, rejecting him completely. His advice and cheerful demeanor only made her feel more humiliated. She believed he was mocking her, laughing behind her back. Her self-loathing boiled over, and she lashed out, convinced everyone in the gym was judging her. Malwang, however, told her it was a misunderstanding, but before he could say more, Yura bolted, overcome by shame. Later, during another cardio session, she nearly collapsed again, but this time, she was caught and steadied by someone. Turning to look, she was stunned to see Malwang once more, but this time, he had become bulky himself. He'd intentionally gained weight to prove a point. She warned him that people would mock him, ridicule him, and judge him mercilessly. And right on cue, Dave entered, made a disgusting face, and called attention to his changed appearance. But instead of judgment, his friends greeted him with laughter and support. They joked about his size, playfully poked his stomach, and celebrated his rock-and-roll curves with zero malice. Yura watched, stunned. Malwang explained that people's perceptions didn't change easily. Those who knew and respected him before wouldn't stop simply because of a physical change. He encouraged her to stop punishing herself and to find enjoyment in her journey, whether through exercise or anything else. From that moment on, Yura's outlook shifted. She began training with Malwang, gradually shedding the weight, but more importantly, gaining confidence and self-acceptance. Their bond grew stronger, rooted in mutual respect. Back in the present, Yura stood outside impatiently, wondering aloud what was taking everyone so long in the washroom. Her thoughts were interrupted by a violent tremor beneath her feet. Suddenly, chaos erupted. What felt like an earthquake was, in fact, something far worse. A monstrous spaceship loomed in the sky, its size casting a shadow over the city. Panic swept through the crowd. People ran. Alerts blared from the Hero Association. Evacuation was ordered immediately. Confusion followed. Questions swirled. Should they abandon everything and flee? Could they really call themselves heroes if they left now? Malwang hesitated, unsure. The scale of the threat seemed beyond them, so they decided to leave. But before they could act, a figure stepped out of the spaceship, alien in appearance, grotesque in form. The being observed the crowd with eerie fascination. He remarked on the strangeness of what he saw, life forms he hadn't expected. These weren't the seeds they had planted long ago. The being was confused, disappointed, and eventually furious. The experiment had failed. The humans had evolved unpredictably, and only a small percentage of his intended warriors had emerged. Most had already been eliminated by human hands. He raged against the failure. All the effort, the years of planning, gone to waste. Enraged, he declared humanity a race of parasites and vowed to eradicate them. Confusion rippled through the onlookers. No one understood his ranting until Malwang began walking toward him. The others tried to stop him, warning him to stay back. The alien had arrived in a bizarre, terrifying spaceship and clearly wasn't normal, but Malwang didn't stop. He looked back at them, eyes sharp with contempt. His expression said it all. Were they scared? Weak? Cowards? The unspoken challenge cut deep, like he was calling them out for being afraid to act. Malwang turned back and walked straight toward the alien. Then, without warning, he struck. The alien was launched into the air from the sheer force of Malwang's blow. The monster screamed in rage, preparing to retaliate, but one of the Mega Dead band members hit it with a dumbbell. The rest followed, attacking from all sides, fast and furious. Just as Dave was about to land the finishing blow, Malwang stepped in, claiming it for himself. But before he could strike, the monster unleashed a counterattack. Malwang barely dodged, then he looked down and froze. His calf had turned to stone. He turned around. Civilians nearby were also petrified, but what shattered him was the sight of Dave, frozen mid-attack, already turning to dust. Dave was gone. For the longest time, Malwang had only ever been seen smiling, wild, carefree, almost untouchable. But now, his expression was something no one had seen before. It was unsettling, a mixture of sadness and something darker. A sister had just lost her brother. Friends stood frozen, grieving over someone they'd fought beside. But the chaos hadn't ended. The monster grew irritated, reacting to the noise around him. As the tension rose, Malwang's body transformed. His aura exploded outward in a breathtaking wave of color, a radiant, rainbow-like energy that pulsed with beauty and power. From inside the alien ship, someone who had been observing for a long time paused, clearly impressed by the surge of power. But Malwang himself was no longer conscious of his actions. He had lost all control, consumed by unfiltered rage. Pure energy poured from him, untamed. He charged at the monster with everything he had. But in his fury, his punches missed. None landed. Each strike was wild, unfocused, crashing into the surroundings and leaving devastation in his path. The monster dodged with ease, taunting him with each failed attempt. Somewhere nearby, Ji-hyung realized what she was witnessing. That light, that rainbow aura. She had seen it before. It was the same as that time. In the chaos, the monster seized the opening and struck him directly in the stomach. Malwang's body jolted, blood spilling from his mouth. The attack didn't stop there. The monster continued, launching a series of relentless blows. Malwang took the hits, unable to counter, but still, he refused to fall completely. Slowly, shaking, bleeding, he stood up again. His entire body trembled. His energy was fading, but something inside him pushed him back to his feet. As the monster prepared another attack, Ji-hyung shouted out, trying to stop him. Malwang wasn't himself anymore, and if someone didn't intervene, he was going to die. A sudden blast of energy hit Malwang, knocking him out of the monster's path. It came from Yura. She stepped forward, taking a position between the others and the enemy. She told the others to run. She would handle this alone. She reminded them that she was still in S-Rank, even with only one opponent. She wasn't going down so easily. Suddenly, a mechanical sound echoed from the ship above. A massive number of monsters, hundreds, maybe thousands, were teleported to the ground in an instant. The alien commander gave one final look back and left, saying his business was done here. He had other places to visit. His parting command to the monsters was simple: eliminate everyone. Then the ship vanished. Ji-hyung turned and saw what looked like an endless wave of creatures storming toward them. Yura jumped into action, trying to contain the threat. Her barrier flared around her as she pushed back a small group, but the numbers were too many. She shouted, frustrated, telling the others to move and not slow her down. Her barrier cracked, then shattered. A large monster broke through. Just as it was about to strike, a brilliant yellow beam sliced straight through its body, splitting it in half. Yura turned around to see who had arrived. Standing there was another S-Rank hero, a young mechanical genius identified only by his code, U4860. He was known as 21st Century Boy, real name Juhan. His unique ability allowed him to build anything mechanical, a one-man army of engineering. Despite Yura trying to lecture him about arriving late, Juhan's attention was locked on her injuries, particularly a deep cut on her stomach. Anger took over. His machines roared to life, and with a single command, they tore through the monsters like paper, dismantling them piece by piece in a storm of metal and fury. Amid the madness, one figure remained paralyzed by grief, Dave's sister. She was still crying, broken by the loss of her brother. Behind her, a monster crept close, ready to strike, but before it could, a massive hand crushed it on the spot. It was the gym manager. He had appeared seemingly from nowhere. Though he had no abilities, his physical strength was beyond natural. He gently picked up Dave's body and told Yura to take care of the girl and the fallen. Then, without another word, he charged into the fray, unleashing fury with every punch. The remaining members of the band, still in tears, began to fight too. Grief turned into rage, and rage turned into resolve. Their attacks became desperate, but effective. Ji-hyung, wiping her eyes, stepped in to assist. Even through the pain and tears, she couldn't stand still. Together, they fought. Despite the overwhelming odds, the sheer number of monsters, and the exhaustion across the team, their unity held strong. Blow by blow, monster after monster fell, and somehow, after what felt like an endless night of blood and fire, they won. The battlefield was quiet once more. The monsters were gone. The survivors were barely standing, bruised, wounded, but alive. Juhan, now catching his breath, walked over to Yura with a familiar smirk. He pointed to her injury, suggesting that maybe it needed a kiss. Yura, irritated, shoved him aside, promising Ji-hyung that Juhan wasn't her boyfriend. Still playful, Juhan joked again, but then stopped. He looked around. Something was off. Horse King was gone. Everyone turned to look, but he was nowhere to be found. Because Horse King, Malwang, was far away, alone. He floated in the still waters of a distant lake, unconscious, covered in injuries. Blood surrounded him like ink. His aura had faded. His body was silent. Earth was under attack. Hundreds of alien ships had appeared in the sky, unleashing destruction across every continent. Buildings collapsed. Fires spread, and monsters filled the streets, killing civilians on sight. It was global annihilation. And yet, as cities fell and humanity screamed for help, the Hero Association executives sat safely in a virtual conference call, far away from the front lines. They discussed the disaster like it was routine. One confirmed that simultaneous monster invasions were underway worldwide, and at this rate, humanity wouldn't last a month. But another dismissed the word invasion altogether, calling it a cleanup operation. It wasn't a war, it was extermination. They speculated that this harvest had been moved ahead of schedule, but saw no evidence of an information leak. The monsters weren't acting with purpose. They were just destroying everything in their path. However, one thing troubled them. This wave was being led by a general. That meant coordination, strategy. If left unchecked, Earth would be wiped out completely. The discussion shifted to internal matters. They referenced two coded subjects, U-1608 and U-1508, referring to them as samples. One was hatching, the other being watched by someone named Black. These weren't monsters. They were projects, likely top secret. And if the mysterious group known as the Union found out about them, their alliance would collapse instantly. Despite the apocalyptic situation, the meeting ended on a disturbing note of apathy. One of the leaders suggested ordering food, forgetting that no restaurants were even open anymore. While the Hero Association hid behind screens, the remaining heroes were underground, cloaking themselves with stealth tech as monsters searched nearby. Yura was furious. The city was in ruins, yet the Hero Association wasn't even responding. That's why she had quit, and moments like this reminded her exactly why. Ji-young quietly added that there hadn't been any alerts either, suggesting something bigger might be wrong. But even as chaos loomed outside, all she could do now was heal the injured. Ki-woong reminded her that thanks to her, most of them were still alive. But then he turned his eyes to the small cat that used to hang around Malwang. It wasn't recovering, not even a little, no matter how much healing energy he poured into it. Yuhan entered, annoyed as always, blaming the situation on Malwang and calling him a horse-headed idiot. He explained that the creature wasn't an ordinary pet. It was a cryptid, a rare being that shared a deep, emotional bond with its owner. Cryptids absorbed everything from their partner, pain, memories, even mental wounds. If the cryptid wasn't recovering, then Malwang wasn't either, emotionally or physically. The group went quiet. To many, Dave had been just another strong ally. But to Malwang, Dave was much more than that. He was a mentor, a guide, maybe even a savior. Back when Malwang was just a scrawny, awkward nobody, he'd fallen in love with a girl who publicly humiliated him. She called him disgusting, told him never to show his face again. Her rejection broke him. In despair, he swore to never love again. That's when he saw Dave, a muscular, handsome man surrounded by beautiful girls. To Malwang, Dave looked like a literal god. Desperate for change, Malwang begged him to teach him how to love. Dave, seeing the hopelessness in his eyes, excused himself from his date and told Malwang he'd help. He dragged him to a gym and declared that love started with a well-built body, muscles, posture, confidence. That was the secret to attracting others. Malwang took it to heart. For years, he trained under Dave's guidance. He built muscle, followed every bizarre alpha lesson Dave gave him, and even wore a ridiculous custom suit Dave designed. Finally, Dave said the transformation was complete. Malwang was ready. But when Malwang approached a woman, hiding his face behind a ridiculous mask and speaking like a cartoon villain, she was immediately creeped out. He returned to Dave, humiliated once again. Dave, however, was puzzled. Normally, it was easy for him to pick up chicks, and he had done the same routine as Malwang, whether it was the face mask or the builder body. But Dave had actually forgotten to mention one crucial detail. He was already handsome. When he took his makeup off, a beautiful piece of man emerged. That's when Malwang realized this bastard had been training him and even put a stupid mask on his face. But the reason girls were flocking to Dave was because of his naturally handsome face. Nevertheless, Malwang got angry, feeling like all of this had been pointless. Just a fun little memory of the two of them. Back in the present, Ki-woong wondered aloud how Malwang must have felt when Dave died. No matter how absurd their relationship had been, Dave mattered to him. He was a part of Malwang's identity. Yura stepped forward, stating what they were all thinking. Malwang was not in a good place, and they needed to find him before it was too late. She was about to leave on her own, but Juhan warned her it would be pointless. He had already tried using drones. Malwang wasn't nearby. With the world collapsing outside, there was no telling where he'd gone. Yura didn't care. She was ready to go alone, even if it meant dying. Tears welled up in her eyes. Ji-hyung asked Juhan if there truly was no way. He shook his head. "I'm a genius," he said, "not a god." And that's when a god arrived, or at least someone who looked like one. Heart King burst into the room, radiant, dramatic, and entirely absurd. With flowing hair, a glowing aura, and a radar powered by love, he declared he had followed the scent of someone starved for affection. He had tracked it here. Ki-woong tried to run, but Heart King found him immediately and buried him in unwanted affection, kissing him all over as he cried for help. Ji-hyung interrupted, telling Heart King they needed him, not for romance, but for his radar. He could track people through emotional energy. Heart King agreed, but only after being allowed to feast a little longer. With urgency in her voice, Ji-hyung piggybacked Heart King and demanded they start searching for Malwang immediately. They launched into the forest. Monsters swarmed them on the way, but Heart King effortlessly destroyed them while complaining about being grabbed too hard. Still, his radar kept pinging. The signal was weak, but it was there, somewhere, Far away, injured, broken, and drowning in guilt, Malwang still lived, and they were getting closer. In the meantime, Malwang lay unconscious, motionless and pale, but deep inside his mind, something was stirring. A voice pierced through the darkness, echoing with sarcasm and mockery. He opened his eyes to find himself standing in the middle of a lake of blood. The water rippled beneath his feet, thick and warm. The air felt warped. Colors bled into each other. The sky swirled unnaturally. It felt like he had woken up inside an episode of an anime directed by someone who had taken way too much LSD. The voice returned, taunting him. It laughed and called him a fake superhero, accusing him of putting on a show. He looked down in confusion, still trying to process the scene, muttering something about blood and wondering if he'd passed out inside a horror movie. Then, without warning, a shadowy figure emerged from the lake. It looked exactly like him, only darker, meaner, twisted, a reflection of every insult he'd tried to forget. The shadow called him a pompous scammer before Malwang instinctively punched it in the face. The shadow stumbled back, groaning and complaining like a drunk clone who got hit too hard. Malwang had no idea what was going on, but it was about to get worse. The blood around him shifted, and suddenly, Malwang was looking at his younger self. He was thinner, visibly bruised, and surrounded by a group of bullies. They yelled at him, pushed him around, mocked him for being weak, and demanded food. He stammered that the teacher had called him to the office, but they didn't care. Watching it from the outside, the real Malwang was stunned. This was him, the pathetic version he tried to forget. The voice confirmed it with gleeful sarcasm, like a game show host celebrating his misery. Then it transformed into a younger version of himself, scrawny, broken, eyes full of resentment. It shouted that Malwang had no right to play the hero, that he had gone from punching bag to poser. It called him a fraud, a wannabe protagonist, hiding behind muscles and catchphrases. As if that wasn't enough, the voice morphed again. This time it took on Dave's form, but not the warm, energetic Dave he once knew. This version sneered with venom, blaming Malwang for everything, for Blue's death, for pretending to be something he wasn't, for trying to be the main character in a story he didn't belong in. It screamed that Malwang wasn't even villain material, just an embarrassing half-villain with no depth. Overwhelmed, Malwang shut his eyes, but when he opened them again, he was somewhere even worse, a subway train from hell. The interior was madness. Jesus was fist-fighting Roman soldiers near the emergency exit. Akira from Line 1 stood in a corner like this was his sequel arc. Then came Yura, or a version of her, floating like a bat. She called him a powerless villain, told him to sit down. He blinked in confusion, unsure if she was serious or if this was some twisted metaphor. Then more madness followed. Voices from around the train murmured insults. Ki-woong sat nearby, reading a novel aloud. In it, a story played out. Dave dying, Malwang being blamed, and the world deciding he was no longer a hero, but an outcast. Not even a proper villain. Just trash. Ki-woong looked up and called him exactly that. Malwang was in shock. He didn't understand what was real and what was part of this trip from hell. Then the train lights dimmed, and a man with a conductor's baton slammed it against the wall, demanding silence. The rest of the passengers, people he knew, joined in. The band members, Dave's sister, even the gym manager. They called him a scammer, a pervert. They said everything was his fault. He backed away, breaking down, repeating over and over that it was a misunderstanding, that he wasn't a freak, that it wasn't what they thought. But his younger self appeared again. The high school version told him he was lying to himself, that everything that happened was on him, that he, Horse King, was the reason it all went wrong. Meanwhile, in the real world, Ji-hyung had found Malwang's body. He was still breathing, but completely unresponsive. She tried shaking him awake, calling his name. Nothing worked. Heart King hovered nearby, visibly alarmed. He declared that Malwang wasn't just unconscious, he was under something deeper. A curse, a sleep spell, something that couldn't be fixed with medicine. He even suggested, with complete sincerity, that this was one of those fairy tale scenarios where the only way to wake the prince was with a kiss. Before he could finish that thought, Ji-hyung slapped him hard enough to send him flying. She turned her focus back to Malwang, activating her healing powers with trembling hands. She refused to give up. She would save him, but fate didn't wait. In the hideout, monsters were closing in fast. Before Yura could activate any defenses, a massive strike hit the building. The structure collapsed in an instant. Everyone inside was injured, dazed, broken. Ki-woong stood back up, shaking, blood dripping from his mouth. Two monsters appeared and were about to punch him into oblivion. The gym manager intercepted, but he was overwhelmed. One of the monsters turned again to finish Ki-woong, but Juhan activated his powers to pick him up and fly off along with Yura, but a monster hit him and he went flying. Yura fell to the floor. A monster raised its foot to crush her, but Ki-woong moved faster. He shielded her with his own body. He closed his eyes. He had always dreamed of dying in a cool way, like the side characters in stories who made the main hero shine, and in that moment, as the monster's shadow loomed over him, he smiled. Maybe this was it. A good death, a good life, goodbye. But just before the final blow landed, a blur of light streaked down from above. A figure landed, helmeted, glowing, glorious. It was a Power Ranger. Yes, a Power Ranger. Because even as death loomed and pain filled every corner of the battlefield, this manhwa still refused to take itself seriously, and thank God for that. Okay, jokes aside, it really was an A-rank hero who dropped in Red Mask, a showboating savior whose quirk, hero's strength, lets him copy any finishing move from the cheesiest action movies ever filmed. The first thing he did was nothing. Ki-woong, bleeding yet stubborn, scooped up the still unconscious Yura and sprinted for cover, shouting at the hero to start punching. Red Mask murmured that the timing wasn't right, and Ki-woong was rewarded with another pulverizing fist for his impatience. Meanwhile, it was starting to look like a full-blown film production. Camera operators, positioned for optimal angles, captured every humiliating detail of the manager's beating. A drone hovered overhead, its countdown signaling the start of a scene, while Red Mask, blissfully unconcerned with the monsters, received massages and fluid treatments. The villains who look more like clowns continued their assault on the heroes, while Juhan dragged the still unconscious Yura away, a monster hot on their heels. The cameraman, ever the opportunist, zoomed in on Ki-woong's bleeding and battered form, eager to capture his desperate side for the eager viewers. Rewind a bit, and Red Mask's history as an actor came into sharp focus. Fresh off a movie set, he was receiving his post-shoot touch-ups when the director lauded his improving acting skills. Red Mask, with a smug nod, then acknowledged Ki-woong, who was quite literally bleeding for his art. "Your expression was great. It really gave me the chills for the first time in a while," Red Mask exclaimed, adding a playful barb about villains making heroes shine brighter. It became clear that Ki-woong's brutalization was merely a means to an end, to enhance Red Mask's heroic persona for the cameras. The hero, ever the showman, requested future collaborations to further elevate his own standing, all in the name of justice prevailing. Ki-woong, seemingly lost in the delusion of performance, took beatings for someone solely seeking attention. Back in the present, children across the globe were glued to Twitch, where Red Mask dominated the main page. He made his grand, cliché entrance onto the battlefield with all the predictable catchphrases. "This Red Mask won't let you die. If there are people in danger, I'll fly anywhere. To protect even one more person. I fight today, too." The heroic posturing was in full swing. Hot as fire, fast as lightning, hero of justice, Red Mask appears. Blah, blah, blah. But then, the script took a wild detour. Ki-woong, in a sudden burst of rage, went full Super Saiyan. "You son of a bitch, you idiot, what the hell are you doing?" he roared at Red Mask, his voice dripping with pure fury. He unleashed a torrent of insults, accusing Red Mask of self-indulgence and demanding he wake up. For a moment, it seemed Malwang had possessed him, as Ki-woong cackled maniacally. "Yeah, let's die! Let's die! Ha 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 ha!" A bewildered cameraman, still streaming live, tried to tell him to move as he was in the shoot, only for Ki-woong to point out his open fly. As the cameraman looked down, bam! A swift knee to the face. The camera crew was aghast, questioning if this good citizen had gone rogue. Ki-woong, now laughing maniacally, declared, "You're kidding. Now, kneel. The real villain has appeared here." Even the two clown-like monsters cowered in fear, recognizing a legendary figure with no blood or tears. The drone operator, in a desperate attempt to salvage the broadcast, suggested reorganizing, but Red Mask, ever the opportunist, saw a perfect opportunity. He waxed poetic about a villain more demonic than a monster, acknowledging Ki-woong as someone he knew, a guy really good at one thing, getting hit. He continued his dramatic pronouncements, setting the stage for what he deemed a good scene. Ki-woong, embracing his new role, confessed, "Of course I'm cowardly. I'm a villain. Ha 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 ha." Juhan understandably was dumbfounded. Red Mask, however, egged him on. "Yeah, a villain. Good, that's what a real villain should be." For Red Mask, this was the perfect scene. Red Mask launched an attack, but Ki-woong, with surprising agility, teleported behind him. Red Mask, anticipating this, spun around for a backhand punch, only to halt when Ki-woong used a cameraman as a human shield. The camera, of course, was still rolling, so he stopped. Ki-woong then hurled the cameraman at Red Mask, sending them both flying. Meanwhile, the monsters who were watching all this unfold like a movie started clapping. They were impressed. This was next-level evil. Using hostages mid-battle? Genius. They were starting to believe Ki-woong wasn't just a villain, he was the second coming of a demon lord. Red Mask, coughing and regaining his footing, called Ki-woong a damn villain and signaled to a cameraman. The cameraman acknowledged, and Red Mask flew towards Ki-woong, a flurry of punches ensuing. Their battle raged, some hits landing, others dodging. Meanwhile, the manager, who had taken a considerable beating, was stuck in the ground with his neck still buried, murmuring, "It's neck and neck. If he does well, he might win." Juhan, on the other hand, disagreed. He could see that Red Mask had been acting all along, holding back his true strength to keep his audience engaged. Now, he unleashed his ultimate power, blasting towards Ki-woong. But before the attack could connect, he was punched in the face and sent flying. Viewers and cameramen alike were shocked, and the live stream abruptly ended. It was our very own clown monster duo, who, thoroughly impressed by Ki-woong, now believed him to be the demon lord. They bowed, begging to be taken in. Ki-woong, surprisingly calm, acknowledged them, deciding to give this demon lord thing a try. He transformed for a photo shoot with the monsters, but their moment of triumph was short-lived as a colossal hammer struck all three of them, sending them sprawling. Finally, Yura had awoken up. She declared, "It's a wrap," and with that, the chaotic spectacle truly concluded.